like why choosing him helps you just decide what stays and goes, and is it purely will he be interested, or are there any other things that you look at when you choose that you're writing for a very specific person?
That's a super, like there's examples I can use in here that are kind of cool if people are interested in how to write books. Like we could be, I mean, because what I would say is, in the past we've talked about the fact that we're writing this book for like one person, and I think that's probably, if you ever think about writing a book, or you think about writing an article, or you think about giving a presentation, that's probably pretty good advice, because it gets away from the generic and gets to the specific, and you go, well listen, if Kevin was not interested in this, then we shouldn't keep it in the presentation, or the article, or the book, whatever. Now, as with all advice, it works for me. It might not work for you, but I'll throw it out there and you can do with it what you will. What it does mean for us as the writers of this is you're always really thinking about who you're serving. We're just writing a piece at the moment about what is the right ratio between negative feedback and positive attention. Because of course you can't ignore what people are doing wrong, but of course you can't spend all of your time focused on what they're doing wrong either. So what does science tell us? Now, that's an interesting thing, because you might go, 50-50. 50% on negative and 50% on positive, that's jolly good. You might say that. Or you might go, actually it's 70-30, 70% on negative and 30% on, or you might go the way of, well, there are some companies, I won't mention their name, that have gone 100% for all negative feedback all the time. So what is the ratio? Well, actually, we don't need to say I think. There is a great deal of science about what is the right ratio of criticism to positive attention that leads to better relationships, better performance, better engagement, that leads to all the things that make life worth living, but also makes your body work better. We actually know the answer to that. I'm not going to tell you. But there's an answer to that question, which is kind of cool. So if we're sitting around over a dinner party or something, we go, oh gosh, I wonder what it is. How much negative versus how much positive? How much criticism versus how much developmental stuff? Like, what is it? There's an answer. The jury went out, they did their thing, they thought about it for a long time, and they came back in and they went, here's the answer. Now, if you're thinking about our one reader, which we have in mind, you can think to yourself, well, how does he just want the answer? Or do you play it out into some entire set piece where you go into the deep research that was done to generate that number? And there's a lot of really sort of interesting stories you can tell about that research and how they did it and how they found the number. But frankly, as we were going through everything, you're like, you know what? This is just satisfying your own curiosity. The reader, he just wants to know the number. Because at this point in the chapter, it's chapter 5 as it happens, he just wants to know what to do. So you reference the research, but you don't dive into it. This is the same in anything, right? It's the same in relationships, and it's the same in sales. If you believe that A is your starting point of selling and F is your close, if the prospect goes from A to F, you don't really need to go back and run through B, C, D, E, right? You went to the close. So in this case, you go, gosh, how do we serve the reader? And hopefully we're making the right decisions in going, don't go down there because you think it's interesting, because actually he wouldn't think it's interesting. And in so doing, hopefully you end up with just the right amount of, yeah. So that's the art and the science of choosing what goes in and what gets cut out.